Welcome back to AI Paper Podcasts. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're tackling generative modeling with Bayesian sample inference. This one's a real head scratcher, even for us.
Yeah, it's definitely pushing the boundaries. Forget starting with noise and denoising like those diffusion models.
That's what I thought was so interesting. We usually think of generative models as working with noise, right?
Right, but BSI flips the script. Imagine starting a detective case, but instead of a few suspects, you've got the whole city.
Okay, I'm intrigued. That's a lot of suspects. So how does BSI even begin to narrow things down?
Well, we start with this broad initial belief about what the sample could be. Think of it as a super vague sketch, just a hint of an image.
So we're not starting with complete randomness. There's some kind of starting point.
Exactly. It's not pure noise. It's this wide distribution covering a huge range of possibilities.
Okay, so how do we go from this vague sketch to something, well, more recognizable?
That's where the Bayesian inference comes in. The model makes a prediction based on this initial hazy belief, and we get a measurement. It's like finding a blurry fingerprint at a crime scene.
I see. So the measurement gives us some information, but it's not a clear picture.
Right. It doesn't pinpoint the exact answer, but it helps us refine our initial belief, like the detective eliminating some suspects based on that fingerprint.
Aha, so each measurement helps us narrow down the possibilities, getting closer to the actual image.
Precisely. And we report this process, the model making predictions, us getting noisy measurements, and the belief getting more and more refined until, boom, we have our generated sample.
It's like those detective shows where they start with a huge board of suspects and slowly eliminate them until they find the culprit. But instead of a suspect, we're generating an image.
Exactly. It's a constant process of refinement back and forth between prediction and measurement. And the cool thing is, it actually works.
So this is a completely different approach to generative modeling than what we've seen before. Before we dive deeper, can we give our viewers a quick recap?
Sure. BSI is all about reframing generative modeling as this detective-like process. We start with a super broad belief and use these noisy measurements to refine it step by step.
So it's all about starting broad and gradually zeroing in on the right answer. And this leads to a new type of generative model, right?
Yes. It's theoretically simple, but really effective. We're talking competitive likelihood scores on CIFAR-10 and ImageNet.
Wow, those are some tough benchmarks. And it even outperforms some big names like variational diffusion models.
And Bayesian flow networks.
So it's not just keeping up, it's actually beating the existing models. That's impressive. And I'm guessing this unique approach might also lead to more diverse and unique samples.
Potentially, yes. Because we're starting with this wider range of possibilities and refining it, we might be able to capture more variations in the data.
Interesting. Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's take a step back and look at the landscape of generative models. We've got our usual suspects, right? VAEs, normalizing flows, GANs.
Yep, those are the classics. And of course, we can't forget the rising star diffusion models.
Right, diffusion models are all the rage right now. But this BSI, it's not just another entry in the popularity contest, is it?
Not at all. It's a whole new way of thinking about the problem.
It's not hopping on the bandwagon, it's building a whole new vehicle. So let's break down how this BSI process actually works. We start with this belief, which is a normal distribution with low precision. Does that mean it's like saying, okay, our image could be anything right now?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Low precision means high variance. So our initial belief covers a vast range of possibilities. It's like that massive suspect pool we talked about earlier.
Okay, so how does the model make sense of this sea of potential images? How does it even begin to make a prediction?
Well, it uses this broad belief to make a prediction about the hidden sample. But remember, it's working with very limited information at this point, so this prediction is going to be pretty noisy.
Right, it's like the detective saying, I think the suspect is tall and wearing a hat, but that still leaves a lot of possibilities open.
Exactly. And based on this fuzzy prediction, we generate a measurement, which is also going to be noisy. It's like a witness report that might be partially inaccurate or incomplete.
So we have this uncertain belief, a hazy prediction, and a noisy measurement. How do we move forward with all this uncertainty?
That's the beauty of Bayesian inference. The model uses that noisy measurement to update its belief about the sample. It's like the detective saying, okay, the witness saw a blue hat, so let's focus on suspects who fit that description.
So with each measurement, we're getting a clearer picture, like refining a blurry image.
Exactly. And we repeat this process, making a new prediction based on the refined belief, getting another noisy measurement, and refining our understanding further. This keeps happening.
Okay, this iterative approach is starting to make sense, but I know there are some math enthusiasts out there who are wondering about the technical details. The paper mentions the evidence lower bound, or ELBO. Can you give us a simple explanation?
Sure, the ELBO basically tells us how well our model's beliefs align with the actual images we're trying to generate.
So it's like a score for our detective work.
Exactly, and the higher the ELBO, the better our model is doing.
Makes sense. But I'm thinking, with all these noisy predictions and measurements, wouldn't that make the ELBO estimation pretty unstable.
You're absolutely right. That's a key challenge, and the paper has some really clever ways of dealing with that variance.
Ooh, a cliffhanger. Well, viewers, you'll have to wait for part 2 to find out how they tackle that problem. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it.
Welcome back. Last time we left off with this problem of uncertainty in BSI, all those noisy predictions and measurements, remember?
Right, it seemed like that would make the ELBO estimation pretty shaky, so how do they deal with that?
They use this neat trick called importance sampling. It's like having a super smart assistant who can tell you which clues are most likely to lead to a breakthrough.
So instead of trying to analyze everything, we focus on the most important bits of information.
Exactly. We strategically choose which measurements to prioritize during training.
That makes sense. It's about working smarter, not harder. So instead of sampling from all the possible precision levels, which would be a huge computational burden, we focus on the ones that matter most.
Right. And that helps us reduce the variance in the ELBO estimation, leading to more stable and efficient training.
So it's like a 2-for-1 deal. We get more accurate estimations and we save computational resources.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation.
Now, remember those impressive results on CIFAR 10 and ImageNet? BSI was outperforming even those heavy hitters like variational diffusion models and Bayesian flow networks. What makes BSI so effective?
Well, I think it comes down to a few things. First, the Bayesian approach itself is really well suited for this kind of generative modeling. Starting with a broad perspective and refining it step by step seems to be a really powerful way to capture the data distribution.
It's like starting with a wide net and slowly tightening it until you catch the most valuable fish.
I like that analogy. And then there are all those clever design choices that we talked about earlier, like preconditioning and the way they encode the precision parameter.
Right. Preconditioning is like giving our detective a magnifying glass to make those fine-grained distinctions as they get closer to the solution.
Exactly. And encouraging the precision parameter using the CDF that ensures that the model can actually use this information effectively.
It's like making sure our detective can understand the clues they're gathering.
Precisely. It's all about bridging the gap between the mathematical elegance of the theory and the practical implementation in neural networks.
Speaking of bridging gaps, let's talk about that surprising connection between BSI and Bayesian flow networks. It's not every day a new model comes along and says, hey, I can do what you do, but better.
It's a bold claim, but they back it up. They show that BFNs are actually a special case of the broader BSI framework.
So it's like BSI is the parent model and BFNs are the offspring.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. BFNs share the core principles of Bayesian inference, but they operate with a more limited prior distribution. Remember how BSI starts with that super broad initial belief represented by a normal distribution?
Right, it's like saying our suspect could be anyone in this city.
Exactly. BFNs, on the other hand, they always start with a fixed prior centered at 0. It's like the detective always starting their investigation at the police station, no matter where the crime actually happened.
So BSI's more flexible starting pot allows it to explore a wider range of possibilities right from the start. That could explain why it achieves those impressive likelihood scores?
That's a key insight. It's all about that initial flexibility. BSI allows for more variability in that initial belief, so it's better equipped to capture the full diversity of the data.
It's like giving our detective a helicopter instead of just a patrol car. They can cover more ground, see things from different angles.
Precisely. And this greater flexibility also has implications for sample diversity. We know that likelihood isn't everything in generative modeling. We also want to create unique and interesting samples that capture the richness of the data.
So it's not just about finding the right answer, it's about exploring all the different possibilities.
Exactly. BSI might be better at both finding the suspect and sketching their portrait, so to speak.
Now that's a compelling thought. And this brings us to the connection with variational diffusion models. Both BSI and VDMs work with distributions of latent variables, but they go about it in very different ways.
Right. VDMs are all about gradually adding noise to the data, while BSI starts broad and refines its beliefs over time.
It's like VDMs are blurring a clear image, while BSI is sharpening a blurry one. Two different approaches to achieving a similar goal.
I like that. And this difference in approach leads to distinct update steps during sampling. VDMs rely on denoising the data step by step, while BSI iteratively refines its belief based on those noisy measurements.
And the encoding distributions are different too. BSI uses a simple normal distribution that gets more precise with each step, while VDMs have a more complex encoding distribution that depends on the signal-to-noise ratio.
Exactly. And these subtle differences highlight the unique strengths of each model. VDMs are great at capturing the overall structure of the data, while BSI shines at revealing those fine-grained details.
It's like having two master artists using different techniques, both capable of creating amazing work.
A perfect analogy. And this raises a fascinating question. Could we combine elements of both approaches to create even more powerful hybrid models?
Now that's an intriguing thought. We've already seen how BSI borrows some ideas from diffusion models like preconditioning. Could we take this a step further?
It's definitely an exciting avenue for future research. Imagine a model that combines the Bayesian refinement of BSI with the elegant diffusion process of VDMs.
That would be incredible. It's like combining the skills of two brilliant detectives to crack the ultimate case. But for now, we'll have to leave that as a challenge for our viewers. So we've explored this fascinating new model, BSI. It's shaking things up in the world of generative AI. But what's the bigger picture here? What are the implications beyond just generating cool images?
Well, I think BSI represents a shift in how we think about AI as a whole. It's a move towards more probabilistic reasoning, embracing uncertainty instead of shying away from it.
It's like teaching AI to think like a scientist, right? Constantly updating their beliefs based on new evidence.
Exactly, and this shift has huge potential not just for generative modeling, but for AI in general. Imagine AI systems that can reason about complex scenarios, even when they don't have all the information. AI that can handle the messiness of the real world.
So AI that's more robust and adaptable, less reliant on perfect data and predefined rules.
Precisely. Think about self-driving cars, for example. Instead of relying on rigid programming, a BSI-inspired system could constantly update its understanding of the environment, making decisions based on probabilities and adapting to unexpected situations.
That's like having an AI driver with intuition. AI that can actually think on its feet.
Right. And this applies to so many other areas too. Medical diagnosis, financial forecasting, climate modeling. BSI could revolutionize these fields by bringing in this probabilistic, iterative approach.
It's not just about replacing human experts. It's about giving them powerful new tools. Tools that can handle uncertainty and complexity in a way that traditional AI systems can't.
Absolutely. And this brings us to one of the most exciting possibilities, the intersection of generative AI and other areas of AI. We've seen how BSI draws inspiration from diffusion models. Could this lead to a future where generative models become a core part of all AI systems?
It's an interesting thought. What if AI could not only understand the world, but also create new things, new ideas, new solutions, new possibilities?
That's the dream. And BSI, with its elegant Bayesian framework and its ability to handle noisy data, could be a key part of making that dream a reality.
So for all our viewers out there who are working on the cutting edge of AI, what's the one key takeaway from all of this?
Embrace uncertainty. Embrace iteration. Embrace the power of probabilistic reasoning. This is the future of intelligent systems, and who knows, maybe one of you watching this will be the one to take BSI even further, unlocking even more of its potential.
It's an exciting time to be working in AI. There's so much we're still there, Garing, so much potential waiting to be unlocked. And BSI, with its unique approach and impressive results, is a glimpse of what's possible. So keep exploring, keep innovating, or keep pushing the boundaries of what AI can do. Until next time.